Hey, ooh, I'm nervous for this one. Oh, there's Lily. So today we are talking about how to put yourself first. And this is a very vulnerable topic for many of us. It's a very vulnerable topic for me. I know that this word is very loaded. First of all, welcome to Clarity with Claire, where this is your go-to place to feel safe. Oh my gosh, my cat. Safe to ask the questions that you are afraid to ask. This is the place for you to show up as who you want to uniquely be. You can be anything you want in this space. I will always see you for who you really are and who you are already becoming. And yeah, this is a place for you to feel seen and heard and really ask some tough questions, some beautiful questions, and to be honest with yourself and others and do healing and have fun and all these things. So yeah, so today I was talking earlier about discussing, asking myself earlier, what should we talk about today? And I've done a lot of videos in the past where about health and nutrition. And that was a great place to start because, I was figuring out Facebook Live. But now we can always talk about nutrition and health if you want. Message me. You could say, hey, I'd rather talk about nutrition and health. But I'm feeling more of a call to kind of go into these deeper topics like self-love and guilt and, why we say we want to do things, but we really can't do it. And that's what I work with on with my clients all the time too, is why I'm a health and life coach, and why you say you want to lose the weight, or you say you want to put yourself first, and yet why aren't we doing it? And so this is the really juicy stuff, and it's really that we deep down don't want to get those results. Hi, so good to see you guys. I'm so glad you are here with me. So if you are just joining now, leave a comment, let me know you're there. And if you're watching this video after it's been posted, let me know too. Like I won't be there that moment, the video will be finished, but just like write questions and comments throughout the video. So with this topic, I want to just begin with, there's a lot of shame, especially with women, but men too, with putting yourself first. And there's just a whole bunch of, women should put themselves first. They should sacrifice themselves for their friend, for their family, for their friends, husband, wife, children, all of that. And there's a lot of shame around putting yourself first. And and so one of the best questions that I like to ask myself when starting this work is, especially where there's a lot of guilt around taking care of yourself, is who would benefit from me taking care of myself? Okay, it's like I often meet a lot of women, including myself. I'm working on this where it's like, I can't put myself first. I'd rather die. I will lose everyone I love. I will be seen as a bitch. I will be seen as, oh, God forbid, I put up boundaries, because in order to fully take care of ourselves, we must put up boundaries. That's a whole other topic, but that's what I'm working on. But oh my gosh, I must put up boundaries. Yes, all of that. There's often a lot of fear around beginning this work though. So one question that I like to ask my clients and myself is, who would benefit from me taking care of myself, from me putting myself first? Okay, who would benefit? Who might benefit? And I get a lot of people going, okay, well, my kids, my daughter, she would see me as a role model. She's going into high school and she has low self-esteem, and sometimes they say, I wonder why, because I'm always putting myself down, and all that stuff. So who might benefit me from me putting myself first? Also, like, there's a funny story. A woman that I heard a story about a woman who, one of my health coaching friends told me this, where her client was, she felt guilt putting herself first and going to yoga every evening, and because she felt like she had to take care of her family and stuff. But her husband learned that, when she went to yoga, he got laid more often because she was glowing and everything. So, it works for everybody. So just to kind of, who would it benefit? Okay. And there's this thing that we go into, I'm going to briefly go over this, called ecology, when I learned from my health coaching school, Health Coaching Institute, which is at the heart really of my work and really good coaches' work, is ecology, because a lot of people, they come to me and they say, I want this, you know, wave your magic wand, tell me what to do. And I'll say, okay, you know, you got to do this, this, and this. And yet it won't happen because there's a lot of things in the way, obstacles in the way for them to getting what they want. So, hi, and if you're joining now, type a comment into the chat. We're talking about how to put yourself first and without the guilt, which can be a very challenging topic. So, yeah, so ecology is basically the reason why we're not getting what we want. And ecology is all the systems that are put in place since we're little about how we get love, safety, and belonging. And it's a big topic. I'll talk about it much later in further depth. But ecology is basically what we learn at an early age in order to get love, safety, and belonging. So I came from a wonderful family with a wonderful dad. However, my dad, although he was amazing, I'm shaking a little bit saying this, he was someone who had issues with me standing up in my own power. And he was very sweet and supportive, but he had issues whenever I stood in my power. And I learned at an early age to not assert anger, because as soon as that would happen, he would withhold his love from me. So I learned at an early age to be a very good girl, to always do what I was told. And he never would have wanted that deep down, but I think he learned that from his family. So this is ecology, and it's passed down and down to generations. And so that's how I learned to, in some ways, not put myself first, because, good girls don't put themselves first. Good girls, help other people. So I learned that was a good way, a smart way to get love, safety, and belonging. So we must heal those deep-seated feelings, those reasons for getting love, safety, and belonging. We must heal them before real change can happen, okay? So that's in my work with my clients. But when you think about it, in the end, it's never as bad as we think it's going to be, right? Have you ever stood up for yourself and decided, yeah, I'm going to put myself first today. I'm going to go to that class. I'm going to do Pilates, or yeah, I'm going to buy that dress that I wanted. Even though it might seem ridiculous, I want that dress. And I don't know when I'm going to have the occasion to wear it, but I want it. I feel sexy, right? So it's never as bad as we think it's going to be. In our head, it's always the worst, the reactions of others, and, oh, how dare she put herself first? What a bitch. What's one of the worst words a woman can imagine hearing? Oh, she's selfish, right? She's selfish. So, who here has dreaded that word, being selfish? I'm not selfish. Let me prove for the rest of my life that I'm not selfish, right? So if you have ever felt that way, type me into the chat. I have a million times. I've tried to prove to the rest of the world my whole life that I'm not selfish. But we all have those parts. I'm also very selfish, In trying to hide that part, I became even more afraid. So in the end, whose opinion matters most? Who are you going to live with so intimately for hopefully 80 to 100 years, 24 hours a day? Yourself. Right? Yeah. So one story that really helped me, I'm a health and life coach, and I often listen to demo videos from my school about how to coach. And one woman on a demo video I was listening to, being coached by one of our master teachers, she was having issues with this topic. She didn't know how to put herself first. She felt she didn't deserve it. She felt guilt. And Carrie, I think it was Carrie or Stacy, one of the coaches said, okay, so you're a grandmother, right? And she said, yeah, I have a granddaughter. And she said, okay, what's the granddaughter's name? And she says, Daisy. She says, oh, Daisy, such a sweet name for a little girl. And how old is Daisy? Oh, she's 3. Okay. So imagine Daisy, and you come to Daisy and you say, Daisy, I love you so much, and I would just love it if, would you please, never live a life more full or juicy than me, never be happier than me, never put yourself first more than me, because there's often that issue, oh, I can't be happier than others, there's that fear as well. Please don't take care of yourself more than me, don't love yourself more than me, there's that, don't you dare be happier than me. And here you go. And what if Daisy said, here you go, Grandma, here you go. This is all my happiness, all my love. Here, take this. It's yours. All my well-being, my sense of boundaries, I don't need them. I'm giving them to you. Here you go. And that just floored her. And it just, the coach said, did that help? Is that what you want? Is that what you think others want from you? And she said, well, yeah, I thought others wanted that from me, my sense of well-being and my inner peace. But really, if she imagined the person that she loved, one of the most on this earth, saying, here you go, giving you everything, my well-being and all that stuff, it just destroyed her. So really putting yourself, imagining the most precious person you love, handing over what you hand over to others every day and saying, here you go, it's yours. Ooh, that just destroys me. Hey, Talita and Leah. Yeah, Leah says me. Daniel says me. Hey, Daniel. So good to have you here. Oh, Leah has a little emoji with a rose in its mouth. So cute. Yeah, right? Just like, oh, I would never want a small child to say that to me. I used to have a grandmother who was well-meaning, but she was never happy, and she wanted others to, there was almost like a need to have others, no one else could be happier than her. It felt like, if she was upset, then you all had to be upset too. And if she was mad, then everybody had to be mad, like you had to mirror her. And otherwise you weren't loving each other. And there was no boundaries. There were no emotional boundaries. So imagining a small child, because I have those issues of, oh my gosh, having those boundaries of, I love you, but I'm not going to feel those with you. I will be right here loving you, but I'm not going to do that to myself because that's harmful. Learning how to do that. So yeah, right? And if you've ever experienced that feeling of needing to share someone's feelings and you don't want to try them on or feel them, but you feel like you must out of love, type in me. That's a million times I felt that. So whenever you have any kind of issue like that, or taking care of yourself, putting yourself first, imagine a small child in that position. And would you really want them to, disown that part of themselves so that you could be served instead of them? Right? So yeah. And was there ever a time when you put yourself first and there was a really good response, right? Where someone's like, hey, yeah. And you're like, hey, that was a good decision. Yeah. And maybe like, I don't know, maybe your husband or your wife noticed and you were like, oh, that's great. And they said that you looked more glowing than normal and just everything fell into place, right? Because that's actually what normally happens. We just don't go through with it because our minds are so scary, right? And then also, what's the worst case scenario situation in your mind that could happen if you really put yourself first and gave yourself exactly what you needed or wanted? Are the self-care police going to come and say, oh, don't you dare, like, you stupid bitch. I'm sorry. I know I'm saying bitch a lot in this thing, but it's like, you selfish bitch. That's a very, it's a term that a lot of women get, the word selfish and bitch. I'm like, bitch. With taking care of themselves. So yeah, does that come up? But like writing it down on paper, just everything, the worst thing that can happen. And it might even end with you becoming homeless and dying. That's often what happens at people's, what you could ask yourself, okay, what then would happen? Well, then I would have no friends, what then? Well, then I'd be lonely. What then? Well, I'd be depressed. What then? I might want to kill myself. I mean, anything. It's like, then I would. It's like, get to the root of it. And then once we get to the bottom of it, it's usually never as bad as we think. Yeah. So chances are, if you're not putting yourself first, and you're like most American women or many women, in cultures around the world, a lot of men deal with this, but a lot of women deal with this, especially if you're silently seething inside because your needs aren't being met. And, God forbid, you're silently expecting others to read your mind and give you what you want and need instead because you can't give it to yourself because, you're not giving it to yourself, but you expect others. I've done that so many times. If you have done that, type, serving myself into the chat. Yeah, you're likely going to explode if you're living that way. And you're also probably likely judging others. Yeah, Leah says it's true. So you're likely also very judgmental of others. Maybe not, but I have been very judgmental of others, especially when I'm not giving myself what I want. I look at others and say, like, how? Look at her, being all shiny, giving herself what she needs. Like, makes no sense, but it's like we do that often. So, yeah. And also another thing that helps me is making a list of pros and cons of taking care of yourself. Who wins when you take care of yourself and you're giving everyone the A+ version of you? Who loses when you're giving everyone you love the B or the D version of you? Who loses? Does anyone win? Maybe in your head it's like, well, my grandmother because, she never liked it when people were happy or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but does she really win? Maybe she thinks she doesn't want anyone to be happy around her, but really, does she actually win? So, yeah. And another thing is there's always, so making a list of all the pros and cons, okay? What are all the pros? What are the cons? What are the bad things that could, happen if I take care of myself? Because often there's some hidden stuff in there. Ooh, we talked about ecology a few minutes ago about the reason we don't get what we want often is because of the very early childhood experience of how we get love, safety, and belonging is put intact. And a lot of us learn that in order to get love, safety, and belonging, we can't be selfish or put ourselves first or stand in our power because someone often shuts it down. And we learn very often, very early to not do that. And then we learn to squelch ourselves. So that's a big part of learning how to embrace the real you is to realize that, you're an adult now. You don't need that love, safety, and belonging. I mean, we do really need it. We'll always feel that need, but just realizing, that's what happened. And it helps to get a coach with that too. So, and often there's always a payoff. Have you noticed, like when you do something, and if you've noticed this, type in payoff into the chat where you're doing something over and over and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, why? I've done this so much. I'm frustrated. Like, ooh. And someone says, there must be a payoff. And you're like, no, there isn't. But there is. If you weren't getting something out of it, you wouldn't be doing it, right? I ask myself this all the time with all my issues I have. My mom asks me that too, So what is yours? If you feel comfortable, you can type it into the chat. What's your payoff for maybe you don't have an issue with this topic. Maybe you put yourself first all the time. But my payoff with putting myself first, often there's many payoffs I get, but one is wanting to seem like the nicest person in the world and doing everything for everyone and have people go, Claire's so nice, right? Because there's a part of me that loves that, but then there's a part of me that feels like it's constraining me. Right? I'm the nice one, so I must always be the nice one. And if I'm suddenly bitchy or whatever, we don't know who Claire is anymore, right? It's like, then I might not be liked, There's that feeling. So that's my payoff, being nice and well-liked. And that's not bad, it's just, it's interesting. But that often leads to the ultimate loneliness of never feeling known and loved, right? So if any of this is resonating with you, or if you have any questions about this, or if you want to share your story about putting yourself first, and if you're struggling with it, or if you used to, or if you want to and you know exactly how you want to put yourself first, put that into the chat and share it with all of us as we are together. So cool. So if you feel comfortable typing your payoff into the chat, go ahead. I have many that I'll share in future sessions, but yeah. And also, when we don't allow others to take care of ourselves, when we don't allow ourselves to be taken care of by others or put ourselves first, whatever that means, it could mean letting your spouse or your friend massage your feet instead of going, no, I got it, or I'll massage myself, or all those things we say. When we don't put ourselves first, we end up not showing up as who we truly are. And we end up not feeling completely ever seen. And I have dealt with that many times and deeply suffered from that, of feeling not truly seen for years because of how I hid those aspects of the parts of me that I wanted to put myself first, or I thought I'd be selfish, all those things. So yeah, it's hard. It's very vulnerable to put yourself first and say and ask for what you need and to give it to yourself and to not wait for anyone to give it to you. If you want roses, give yourself roses, right? And yeah, this will be a future topic as well, showing up as who you truly are, vulnerably. But how to begin, really putting yourself first. It helps, with a lot of my clients who are parents, to ask themselves what we talked about at the very beginning of who would benefit from me putting myself first. Like, I couldn't. I feel too guilty. Okay, well, who might benefit from me putting myself first? Okay. And they usually say, my daughter, she looks up to me so much. I want to show her, how to live a rich, full, juicy, creative, self-loving life with a mama or a daddy who cherishes herself and himself and takes care of themselves first before tending to their loved ones, before, putting their own oxygen mask on before, and then helping others. someone who is always full, never empty. If daughters, if children emulate the same-sex parent, I want my daughter to emulate me, in all my healthy ways, to teach them healthy habits and not, let my family history of maybe, for example, toxic people pleasing or putting everyone else first, etc. Getting into her cells, get into her cells for a second. Don't let any of that crap getting into her cells, right? So they often say things like that. So yeah, that often helps kind of with the guilt, getting that guilt away is, taking the attention off of yourself and on others. Who might this serve? If I want to serve the world, will I serve the world by being small and not taking care of myself, or will I serve the world when I'm full more? Okay, the more I'm filled, the more I can serve, right? So, and to begin this work, we, and Leah, who's watching this, is one of my clients. She knows, Leah, about the importance of just 1% each day. 1% change, little changes, small hinges swing big doors, right? One thing a day, no matter how small you start with. You don't try and do it all at once. I almost guarantee it will fail, right? You can try, but you'll probably fail and then just get discouraged and never want to do it again. The biggest habits, if you want to actually learn how to have habit change, is to start very small and just build 1% a day. And soon you'll be at 100. So maybe perhaps you do one thing a day that pleases you for 5 minutes, like reading a juicy book. And you do this for a week, 5 minutes of something that you love. And the next week you increase it to 6 minutes. Maybe you can do Pilates class once a week only. And that's it. No other self, care stuff, or you can do more, but just maybe that one class. And then a month later, amp it up to two classes a week. And then maybe a couple weeks later, 3. It's important to go slow so you don't shock your system, because we must remember who we are. There's often that fear of, well, if I change too fast, how will I know who I am? Right? So that's why we want to go really slowly with this change work. Yeah. And at the very end of this, it's important as you begin this work, Daniel says, exercise, diet, and sleep is how I am working to put myself first. Yes, Daniel, good. And what would you like to start with this week where you are putting one of those areas? You can do 2 if you want, but just one is great to start with, one of those in place. So you can just start a little bit. What's one thing you can do? It's very, very small, that feels very doable and very exciting to you. That's important. Okay, so the last thing is to connect with yourself. Yeah, so before we start all this work, a lot of the time we're so numb to ourselves, like our thoughts and our feelings, we often forget that, we even want something. It could be something that sounds so silly, like, I want that red dress in the window with a little bit of lace on it. I don't know, I want it. I know I'm usually in, sweatpants, and I don't know, who do I think I am to want that? And I don't know when I'd wear it, but I want it. Okay, who am I kidding though? I have no place to wear it. It's a ridiculous desire. But it's in those ridiculous desires that the soul is often speaking loudest. Often I'm a singing teacher as well, as many of you know. A lot of my clients, some of them are actors, but some of them are just people who have always wanted to sing, and they don't have any plans to do anything professional with it, but this is one of the biggest gifts they're giving themselves because they've always wanted to. And it seemed like a superficial or not necessary wish that is cool, but it's not important, necessary, vital. And that's often when we need, to give those things to ourselves the most, because those ridiculous desires, we need to listen and nurture them the most, because they come from the deepest parts of our soul, the childlike parts that have the most wisdom, right? So as we just conclude this amazing, beautiful session today, I feel on fire, electric, just shaking still. It's very vulnerable to talk about this for me. Type in what you got most of out of this into the chat, and what your action steps will be for self-care this week. No matter how small, how will you begin putting yourself first? And if you're afraid, type what you're afraid of into the chat. So beautiful job, you guys. So happy to be with you. Thank you so much for typing into the chat and just being there and showing up with me raw and vulnerably each week. So if you have a certain topic you'd like me to talk about next week, we definitely can. I do, if you want a free 30-minute clarity session with me to see if coaching one-on-one would be a good fit, just contact me via Messenger or at claire@clairehostermancoaching.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week, guys, every Tuesday at 7:30. All right. Have a beautiful week. Bye. Have fun putting yourself first.